Until The Law of One, which is a book I talk about quite a bit, I didn't fully understand oneness and I didn't fully understand unity. And I thought that it was spiritual bypassing to believe in something like that. And I think that spiritual text changed something in me to understand oneness more. And the integration of that information is something that is different for me than when before I'd be like, yes, peace and love, all is one. But I actually had an intellectual understanding and not a deep awareness and integration of the information. So the mind creates the spiritual ego whenever seeking starts. So once we start to be like, oh my God, I want to have spiritual seeking, the mind creates the spiritual ego to hide in because it's recognizing that this is part of the process to move away from the ego, to move away from these protective, this protective shell, these protective identities that we've created our entire lives to keep us from pain, to keep us from all these different things. When the mind takes things and turns them into my understanding, I know this, I do that, that's really enhancing the false sense of being the separate self. And the oneness, the unity, the we are all one, we are all part of the infinite creator is what is the antidote to that. So when we see ourselves as any separate self from anything but oneness, that is where we can find the ego. That is where we can find, the spiritual ego in the space. And I think a really radical text and conversation that A Course in Miracles talks quite a bit about is the idea of being special. And it's so fascinating because I always say that this concept is one that I'm going to put on the shelf of my conceptual ideas or principles or understandings and pull off in a few years when I feel like I want to dig into this, because it's like one of those concepts where I don't even want to. My ego is enjoying the thought of being special, let's say. So my ego is like, we'll put this one on the shelf. We'll marinate and ruminate on that concept later. But within A Course in Miracles, it talks quite a bit about the idea of being special. And if we believe that we are special, we believe that we are other, we believe that we are better than, we believe that we are different, we believe that we are not one, we believe in the illusion, as A Course in Miracles says. And so it has this conversation about the idea that we all think we're special and how that really perpetuates the idea of separation, the idea of being better than others, the idea of the spiritual ego in a way, where you're like, I'm special, I'm unique, I am having this experience, main character energy. This is like full on main character energy vibes. And so not to say that I've myself integrated that conversation or that concept of being special within A Course in Miracles, because I haven't. I actually don't even want to go there yet. But it is an interesting thought, because if we do think that we're special, if we do think that we're different, then we do think that we are not one. And we do feel like we are not of the creator. We are not equal in that sense of us being all God, all living fractals of the divine. And it's important that when we think about the spiritual ego, it's not about getting rid of it or killing it. And I think that's really important to the process. As we evolve and learn, we realize that we don't want to kill any part of us. We don't want to get rid of any part of us. And that's with feelings, that's with emotions, that's with trauma. You don't want to kill your emotions. You don't want to not feel your emotions. You don't want to get rid of them. You want to experience and feel them and come to a place of non-judgment with them. So it's not about getting rid of the ego. It's not about killing the ego. Our egos are dope. They've provided us a great journey in this life. And our egos love that we love them, but we also want to be playful with our egos in our love for them. So when we're kind of being playful with the ego, we can always recognize that we're the eternal being, we're the eternal God, we're the eternal divine nature, and the ego exists as a part of this experience, but is not us. So we know in our hearts that killing the ego or getting rid of the ego is not the way. We don't want to kill any part of us, especially a very important part that has been helpful for our life. Carl Jung says, the first half of life is devoted to forming a healthy ego. The second half is going inward and letting go of it. So it's really important that the first half of our life was about forming this beautiful, healthy ego that supported us in being safe, that supported us in any trauma, that supported us in surviving. And then as we become conscious, as our prefrontal cortex comes online after 25, after we go through our Saturn return, we're almost 30. The second half of our life, we can really work on letting go of it. This is the unlearning of all the principles and practices that keep us safe in our minds, but really are limiting us in our capacity. The ego is a really important part of the process of evolution and of our life. So again, we don't hate the spiritual ego. We live, laugh, love the spiritual ego. And it's a really important vessel for transformation for us. So the aspects of our ego are actually really important part of our transformation journey, of our spiritual journey. And there is an awareness of our egos where we can distinguish between them and our authentic selves. So we can really, really look at the conventional opinion from the outside or the what we've kind of had to build with the ego, and then the unconscious on the inside. Thank you so much for tuning in to Morning Microdose by Almost 30.
We hope you enjoyed waking up.
As always, we encourage you to take what resonates and leave the rest. If you enjoyed this trip, tune into the full episode on the Almost 30 podcast. All episode information can be found in the show notes.
Make sure to subscribe, and if this becomes a part of your morning routine, be sure to share it with a friend. We have new inspiring doses Monday through Friday. Follow us on Instagram at Morning Microdose and follow Almost 30 at Almost 30 Podcast.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you in the vortex.